Snow moved like smoke across the empty road, and the wind pressed on Ruth's coat until it felt thin as paper. Her hands were stiff inside old gloves that no longer kept the cold away. She had knocked on 12 doors. She had heard 12 versions of the same answer. Not tonight, not safe. Try the shelter in town. She thanked each person, because manners were the last thing she could still control. And then she stepped back into the dark. By the 12th door, her legs shook so hard she had to lean on a fence post before she could keep going. She told herself to try one more place. Just one. After that, she would. She did not finish the thought. It felt unlucky to name it. The 13th house sat apart from the others. A single porch light burned over a wooden step. Snow stacked on the railing like white bread. She climbed slowly, her boots leaving wide prints. Her knuckles tapped the door once, then again. She waited with her face turned to the light because it felt good to feel any warmth at all. She heard movement inside. The door opened a little, then a little more. A man stood there in a worn flannel shirt and quilted vest. His hair was gray at the temples. He looked at her, not past her. He saw the blue around her lips. He saw the ice on her eyelashes. He did not speak for a beat, and then he stepped back and opened the door wide. "You're freezing. Come in," he said. His voice was quiet, not sharp. "Mudroom first. Boots off there." Ruth nodded and stepped into air that felt like spring compared to the wind. The mudroom smelled like leather and hay and something clean. He pointed to a bench. She sat and pulled off her boots with both hands. Her fingers were clumsy and slow. He set a towel next to her and a pair of thick socks. She said thank you in a thin whisper. He waved one hand as if to say it was nothing, but his eyes were soft. "I'm Caleb," he said. "I've got a heater going in the front room. We'll warm you up slow." "Too fast is no good, Ruth," she said. She kept her eyes down because it felt easier. "Thank you for opening the door." He led her into a small living room where a space heater hummed near an old couch. A chunky dog, gray around the muzzle, lifted his head from a rug and gave a small groan. He did not bark. He simply watched her, tail tapping twice against the floor. On a side table sat a landline phone, a cheap lamp with a denim shade, and a small framed photo of a smiling woman holding a pie. The room was plain and warm and safe. Ruth stood close to the heater and held her hands out, palms open. She felt the sting that comes when cold skin meets heat. She breathed through it. Caleb went to the kitchen and returned with a mug of tea and a plate with 2 slices of bread, a little butter, and honey. "Small sips," he said. "Eat slow. You can sit on the couch if you want. The dog's name is Buddy. He's harmless. He'll stare until you give him the crust." "You don't have to." Ruth tried to smile. She sat and wrapped her fingers around the mug. The first sip made her eyes water. She ate a bite of bread and felt energy step back into her body 1 inch at a time. She told him her first name again as if to make it real. She said her car died on the highway earlier that evening. She said her phone had been at 5% when she left the car, and that it now lived somewhere in a pocket, cold and empty. She said she had walked toward the lights of a town and had tried to ask for help on the way. She did not say much more. She did not want to tell her whole story yet. Telling it always took the last strength she had, and she needed strength to make simple choices like when to swallow and when to stand. Caleb listened without interrupting. "Roads are closing," he said softly. "Radio said so. Storm's the kind that sits. First we get you warm, then we call the shelter and the sheriff line. If they've got space, I'll drive you in the morning. Tonight you can take the couch. Bathroom's down the hall. My room stays closed. Front door locks. That's how I do it, thank you," Ruth said. The clear rules steadied her. People who draw safe lines are often safe people, she had learned. The lights flickered once. The wind pushed on the house and then let go. Caleb adjusted the heater and added another blanket to the back of the couch. He looked at the clock and sighed. "I've got a heifer close to calving," he said. "Barn's 100 feet out. I should check her. If the power goes again, the heat lamps might cut out. I won't be long. You'll be all right?" Ruth set down the mug and stood. Her legs felt more sure. "I can help," she said. "I used to volunteer at an animal shelter. I'm good at moving slow. I can hold a light or fetch something." He weighed that for a second, then nodded. "Coat's on the peg there. Scarf too. Boots you've got." He whistled and Buddy stood stretched and trotted after them. The night outside was a white hush broken only by the wind's soft growl. The barn's big door swung a little on its hinge. Inside, the air was warmer. The light orange from a lamp fixed high on a beam. Cows shifted and breathed, and the smell of hay and animals wrapped around them like a blanket. In the last stall, a young cow stood with her head low and her sides heaving. Caleb slipped into the pen and knelt to check. He spoke quiet words that calmed the air as much as the animal. Ruth took the flashlight and held it where he pointed. She watched his hands move steady and sure. She watched how Buddy lay near the gate and kept his dark eyes on the heifer, as if eyes could help. Time changed shape in the barn. It stretched and thinned. Wind hit the roof and rolled away. The heifer worked and paused. Caleb kept his voice even. "You're doing fine, girl," he said to the animal. "Easy now." Ruth breathed in a slow rhythm that had helped scared dogs in old rooms. She did not think of the road or the doors or the faces behind them. She kept the light steady. She passed a clean towel when he asked. She warmed a bottle on a small hot plate by the feed bins just as he showed her. When the calf slid into the world, it seemed at first like a bundle of wet sticks in silence. Caleb moved fast but gentle, clearing the nose, rubbing the body, tipping the head. "Come on now," he said in a voice that sounded like hope. The calf coughed. It took a breath that filled the space with a small sound, high and thin. Ruth felt something unclench in her chest. Caleb kept rubbing. The heifer turned, lowed, and licked the calf with quick strokes. The calf tried to pull its legs under its body and failed, then tried again because that is what life does. Buddy thumped his tail once, twice, careful not to hit anything. Ruth laughed once under her breath and felt warmth rise through her body that had nothing to do with the lamp. Back in the house, Caleb set a pot of soup on the stove. The broth smelled like chicken and herbs. He handed Ruth a bowl and poured himself a small one. They sat at the table. The lamp's denim shade cast a soft circle of light. Snow pressed against the window like a curious child. After 3 spoonfuls, Ruth said the thing she had not let herself say. "I almost gave up after 12 doors," she said. "I told myself I'd try one more. 13 felt like a joke the night was playing on me. I'm glad I was wrong." Caleb nodded. He looked at the small photo on the table of the woman with the pie and smiled in a quiet way. "My wife used to say, when a storm comes, widen the circle," he said. She was good at that. "I try to remember." Ruth looked at the photo and then at him. "I'm sorry," she said. "Did she pass?" 3 winters back, he said. Snow was bad that year too. Folks came by with casseroles for 6 weeks. That kind of thing keeps a person standing. Ruth folded her hands around the warm bowl. "I had a job at a plant," she said. "They closed without warning. Sun came late after the storm, like someone slowly turning up a dimmer switch. Ruth woke to a gentle orange line on the curtains and the soft tick of the heater. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Then she saw the denim lampshade, the landline phone, and Buddy the dog curled like a comma near the couch. Her breath was not fog in the air anymore. Her toes, inside thick socks, were warm. She sat up and listened. Somewhere in the quiet, dishes touched softly and a kettle clicked. She smelled coffee. The smell felt like a promise that the night was over. She folded the blankets, smoothed the couch cushion with her hand, and stood. The mirror in the hallway showed her a face still pale from cold but less tight with worry. She went to the kitchen doorway and paused. Caleb stood by the stove in the same flannel shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms. A small radio on the counter spoke in a calm voice about road closures and school delays. On the table sat 2 mugs, a small plate of scrambled eggs and a jar of jam that looked homemade. "Good morning," he said without turning, as if he had felt her there. "Coffee's ready. There's oatmeal too if you want something warm." He pointed with a nod. "No rush. After we eat, we'll check the barn. Calf made it through the night, I think." "Good morning," Ruth said. The words felt new in her mouth. She washed her hands, poured coffee, and took a careful sip. "Thank you for letting me sleep here." "You were a help in the barn," he replied. "I sleep better when the animals are all right. Today we plan next steps. Shelter, work, whatever gets you steady." They ate simple food and listened to the radio. The voice said the main road was still closed at the bridge until the plow came. The shelter phone line was likely overwhelmed. The sheriff's office advised staying put if safe. Caleb turned the radio down and looked at the little notebook he kept by the phone. "First, we try the shelter again," he said, then the sheriff line to confirm the road. "I'll call Nora at the diner. She knows what's moving in town better than anyone. You tell me what you need most today." Ruth looked at her hands. "I need to charge my phone," she said. "I need to call the resource office and ask about replacing my ID. I need a small job." Even a few hours. I can work hard. If I have a place to sleep for a few nights and a little cash, I can start to stand again. That's a good list, he said. We'll move through it one by one. They put on coats and stepped outside. The world was bright and clean, every fence post wearing a white hat. The sky was a deep blue that made the snow look even whiter. Their boots made the old sound snow makes when it is very cold, a soft crunch like biting into an apple. At the barn, the heifer lifted her head and snorted a soft hello. The calf stood on shaky legs, a little miracle with big ears and a wet nose. It wobbled toward its mother, leaned, and found what it was looking for. Ruth laughed, a short, surprised sound that felt like sunlight inside her. You did it, she told the heifer as if the animal could understand sentences. You did the hard thing. Caleb grinned in a small way that changed his whole face. Life wants to live, he said. We help it along, that's all. They refreshed water, spread clean straw, and checked the heat lamp. Buddy sniffed the air like it held a story. When they walked back to the house, Ruth carried a quiet happiness with her. It was not big or loud. It was tidy and steady like a well-made bed. Back in the kitchen, Caleb plugged Ruth's phone into an outlet by the counter. The screen blinked and began to gather itself. He dialed the shelter and listened. Still full, he said after a recorded message. They're doing what they can. They might have a motel voucher later today if the road's open. I'll try again. He called the sheriff line and learned the plow was headed toward the bridge within the hour. Then he dialed a number from memory. Nora, he said when someone answered. It's me, you open? You hear anything about the bridge? Also, you ever have a spare coat in the lost and found pile? Got a guest who could use one for a few days. He listened and then laughed softly. You're a wonder. We'll swing by if the road opens. He hung up and turned to Ruth. Nora says the diner will open late for lunch if the plow gets through. She has a coat and gloves, and this is her word, not mine, a mountain of kindness saved up today. She also says she could use an extra pair of hands to bus tables this week if you feel up to it. Ruth put her hand to her chest, because sometimes good news makes a person need to catch it. I can do that, she said. I can do dishes, wipe tables, refill water glasses. I'll show up on time. Let's make it official, he said. Work here for a few hours first. Fair pay for clear chores, and we set the hours now so it's simple. He wrote on his little pad, shovel path, check trough heaters, label feed buckets for the week, sweep the mudroom. He wrote a number next to it that was fair and not small. 3 hours, he said. We start at 9. We end at noon. Then we see about town. The list made Ruth feel seen and not pitied. Work was something she understood. She nodded and pulled on her coat again. She shoveled a clean path from the house to the barn, laying down sand from a bucket so no one would slip later. She checked the metal rings on the water troughs and tapped away the thin ice at the edges so the water moved freely. She wiped mud prints from the mudroom floor and lined up boots in a neat row. She wrote labels in careful letters on tape for the feed bins. Monday morning, Monday night, Tuesday morning. When she finished, her face was damp with clean sweat, and the air in her lungs felt warmer and bigger. Caleb handed her an envelope. Payment, he said. It matters to me that work is treated as work. She took it and did not argue. Thank you, she said. I will use it for the bus fare if I need it this week, and for a little food if the diner doesn't feed staff. Nora feeds everyone, he said with a small smile. But keep it for what you need. Around noon, a low engine sound grew from the road. They stepped onto the porch and watched the plow push through the bridge drift with slow, stubborn power. A county truck followed, spreading sand like salt from a giant hand. The driver raised 2 fingers off the steering wheel in a neighborly wave as he passed the ranch. The radio confirmed the road was open for local travel. They drove to town in Caleb's old truck. The heater rattled and did its best. The fields on either side looked like frosting on a wedding cake, unbroken and perfect. Ruth held her charged phone like a small anchor. She had saved a few numbers in it during warmer times, and now she could call them again. At the first stoplight, she felt a splash of fear about walking into public spaces. It is hard to be seen when a person has been invisible for a while. Caleb seemed to sense this without her saying it. Small steps, he said. We'll do them one at a time. They parked by the library first. Inside, the air smelled like paper and wood polish. A volunteer at the front desk wore a scarf with small sunflowers on it and had the kind of voice that makes people exhale. She showed Ruth how to fill out a form online to start the process of replacing her ID. She printed a checklist of what to bring when Ruth visited the resource office. She reserved a computer time slot for tomorrow morning so Ruth could update a simple resume. "You've got good work stories already," the volunteer said gently when Ruth looked unsure. "Caring for animals, handling a lunch rush, keeping a space orderly, those are solid skills." From the library, they walked 2 blocks to the diner. The bell over the door gave a bright ding. Warmth and the smell of coffee and onions and fresh pie rolled over them. A short woman with fast eyes and an apron covered in little flower handprints waved from the counter. "You must be Ruth," she said. "I'm Nora. Sit, eat something hot, then we'll set up the bus tub in the dish sink. I pay same day for now. We keep it simple. You can start with water glasses and wiping menus. If you want more hours later, we'll talk." Before Ruth could answer, Nora reached under the counter and brought out a wool coat, a knit hat without holes, and gloves lined with something soft. "People leave things," Nora said. "I wash them and wait for the right person. I think that's you." She also set down a small envelope. "Folks heard about the storm last night and wanted to help someone this week. It isn't much, but it's a start. No strings." Ruth took the coat in both hands. The weight of it felt like safety. She tried not to cry in the middle of a diner. "It is hard to bus tables with tears on your face." She nodded and said thank you 3 times because once did not feel like enough. Then she ate a bowl of stew that warmed her from the inside out and stood to work. The lunch rush came like a gentle wave and then like a fast one. People in heavy coats shook snow from their sleeves and stamped their feet. Ruth moved between tables with a clear plan. Water first, then menus, then clean as they left. She said, "I've got you and I'll be right back," in a voice that was steady and kind. She stacked plates, wiped crumbs into a small pan, and carried bus tubs that seemed to grow lighter as her arms remembered old strength. After an hour, the work turned into a rhythm. After 2 hours, the rhythm turned into something like pride.